There's a way of looking at success, influence, and human interaction that most people never really consider, and once you see it, it can change the way you navigate almost every area of your life. I want you to read this with curiosity, but also with a questioning mind. Ask yourself, why is it that genuinely good-hearted individuals often stumble when it comes to reaching their potential? Why do people who act with integrity sometimes find themselves overshadowed by others who seem less scrupulous? Why do those who give freely and openly occasionally walk away feeling like they've been exploited? Many will quickly attribute this to luck, fate, or unfair circumstances. And while circumstances play a role, they aren't the whole story. What often separates those who thrive from those who struggle is the ability to pair their values with strategic awareness. The world we live in is not a simple stage where fairness alone determines outcomes. It is a complex arena of competing interests, subtle power plays, unspoken expectations, and psychological dynamics. The people who flourish understand how to merge sincerity with strategy, an integration that transforms goodwill into tangible impact. This concept isn't new. For centuries, thinkers, leaders, and philosophers have written about the delicate balance between morality and pragmatism. What we're talking about here is wisdom that has been tested for generations, wisdom that shows why certain individuals rise above challenges and shape the world, while others, equally intelligent and kind, remain confined by invisible barriers. The fascinating part is that once you become aware of these dynamics, you start noticing them everywhere. In your workplace, in your friendships, in politics, in business, even in family interactions. Patterns emerge. Suddenly, conversations take on a deeper meaning, power structures become visible, and you begin to see that many outcomes are not accidents at all. They're the result of people applying timeless principles of influence and timing. If you've been raised to think life is straightforward, that goodness will always be rewarded, that patience will always pay off, that honesty by itself will always win, you may find this perspective uncomfortable at first. That's because we've been conditioned to believe in neat, black and white explanations for situations that are actually filled with nuance. The reality is that human behavior operates on a spectrum. People are driven by needs, fears, ambitions, and insecurities that don't always align with simple ideals. Those who recognize this, who can see beyond surface appearances, tend to navigate life with far more effectiveness than those who remain bound by rigid thinking. One of the greatest challenges for well-intentioned people is that they mistake predictability for virtue. They assume consistency in being agreeable, forgiving, or self-sacrificing is inherently good. But predictable behavior, especially in complex environments, can become a vulnerability. Think about it. If someone knows you will always yield in conflict, always forgive immediately, always put others first, without question, what does that teach them? It teaches them that your boundaries can be crossed without consequence. It teaches them that your contributions can be overlooked. It teaches them that your priorities are negotiable, while theirs are not. In essence, you become someone whose presence benefits others more than it benefits yourself. That imbalance eventually leads to frustration, resentment, or burnout. But let's be clear, this isn't about discarding your principles. It's not about becoming manipulative or abandoning kindness. It's about recognizing that kindness without discernment, generosity without boundaries, or honesty without context can backfire. The individuals who actually bring about positive change in the world don't do so by being naive. They succeed because they understand when to assert themselves, when to compromise, when to adapt, and when to stand firm. They know that intentions must be matched with intelligent strategy if those intentions are ever going to materialize into real progress. Consider the advice most of us were given growing up. Always wait your turn. Be fair. Avoid conflict. Forgive quickly. Don't make demands. On the surface, these sound noble, but look closer at the people who taught you these values. Did they always live by them? Parents encourage you to share everything, yet they carefully manage their own resources. Teachers promote fairness but often apply different rules depending on circumstances. Leaders preach humility yet compete aggressively when their goals are on the line. What this shows us is not hypocrisy but realism. They knew that the world doesn't reward When you operate with rigid idealism, you risk becoming stagnant. You follow the rules faithfully, but others, who combine values with strategy, pass you by. They're not necessarily better people, they're simply more adaptive. They can negotiate power dynamics, sense timing, and understand psychology in ways that turn principles into results. They're like chess players, while rigid thinkers are still playing checkers. It's not that being good is ineffective, it's that goodness, unaccompanied by wisdom, often fails to create the very outcomes it aims for. This brings us to the influence of social expectations. Much of society subtly trains people to be compliant, predictable, and easy to manage. When you always forgive without question, others learn they can repeat offenses. When you always stay quiet to avoid tension, others dominate conversations and silence your contributions. When you always put others first, you condition people to see your needs as secondary. And sometimes, this isn't accidental. Systems, whether families, schools, organizations, or governments, benefit from individuals who don't push back, who don't question, who don't demand fairness. By adhering to simplistic interpretations of morality, you unknowingly play into structures that benefit others far more than they benefit you. But awareness changes everything. Once you see that many of these noble rules were meant to keep you predictable, you realize you have the option to live differently. You can choose to uphold your values without being naive. You can forgive, but with discernment. You can be kind, but with boundaries. You can serve others while also protecting your own priorities. This is not selfishness, it's balance. It's maturity. It's the recognition that your energy, time, and dignity are as valuable as anyone else's. Equally important is the psychology of presentation. Successful people rarely present themselves in the exact same way across every situation. They adapt. They know that influence isn't just about the truth you hold inside. It's about how effectively you can express that truth in ways others can understand. A leader speaking to a group of executives doesn't communicate the same way they would to a group of students. A person negotiating a contract doesn't approach it the same way they would a casual conversation with a friend. This isn't inauthentic, it's intelligent communication. Authenticity doesn't mean stubborn uniformity, it means remaining true to your core values while presenting yourself in ways that resonate with the context. Most people underestimate how much presentation shapes perception. People respond not only to substance but to delivery. Your ideas may be brilliant, but if you express them in a way that doesn't connect with your audience, they won't carry weight. Conversely, someone with less substance but better presentation can gain influence, not because they're smarter, but because they understand how humans process information and respond emotionally. This is why mastering communication is not optional. If you want to be effective, it's essential. To live effectively in today's world, you must hold two truths simultaneously. Your values matter, and so does strategy. Your kindness matters, and so does your ability to protect it. Your honesty matters, and so does your awareness of timing and context. True wisdom lies in refusing to live at either extreme, neither in naive idealism nor in cold cynicism, but in combining the best of both. So the question isn't whether you're a good person. The question is whether you're ready to become a wise person. Are you willing to challenge the conditioning that has made you too predictable? Are you prepared to learn the psychology of influence, the power of presentation, and the necessity of balancing principle with intelligence? Because the people who change the world, the people who actually create lasting positive impact, are the ones who understand that intentions alone are not enough. It takes wisdom, it takes discernment, it takes courage to step beyond rigid rules and operate with both heart and strategy. And when you embrace that balance, when you merge sincerity with intelligence, you not only protect yourself from being exploited, you also maximize your ability to create genuine, lasting change in the world. When people gather and start opening up about their experiences, there's always that unspoken tension about how much to reveal. Do you spill every painful detail, exposing parts of yourself that may later feel too raw or even inappropriate for the context? Or do you share enough to form a meaningful bond, while at the same time keeping certain layers of your personal life protected? The first path, the one where you overshare, often leaves the room in uncomfortable silence or makes others unsure how to respond. The second path, the more intentional one, creates who you are. It's about being wise enough to understand that vulnerability without discernment can be reckless, while vulnerability with boundaries creates respect and trust. Think about another situation. You're speaking with someone who has a strong stance on a subject in which you happen to have deep expertise. Now, you could easily bombard them with complex data, statistics, or highly technical explanations to prove just how much you know. That approach might feel satisfying in the moment, but often it only alienates the other person. They walk away feeling dismissed or overwhelmed, not enlightened. On the other hand, if you translate your expertise into practical language they can grasp and present it in a way that aligns with their perspective, something different happens. Instead of resistance, you foster openness. Instead of conflict, you establish a bridge. That's not dumbing down your knowledge, it's elevating your communication so that your ideas create real impact. Or imagine this. You realize a colleague has been spreading inaccurate details about a project you're involved with. One option is to confront them publicly, proving your commitment to truth. But in doing so, you might embarrass them, trigger unnecessary defensiveness, or fracture working relationships you may need in the future. Another option is to address the issue privately, clarify the facts, and ensure the correct information is shared, moving forward, all while preserving professional rapport. Which outcome is wiser? The second approach not only solves the factual problem, but also avoids creating new problems in the process. This is what intelligent communication looks like. Not silence, not aggression, but thoughtful responses that balance accuracy with diplomacy. The lesson in all these examples is clear. Effective communication isn't about manipulation or deceit. It's about adaptability. It's the recognition that not every situation calls for the same type of response, and that flexibility is often what separates ineffective individuals from those who achieve meaningful outcomes. People who criticize others for adjusting their communication style often mistake rigidity for authenticity. But real authenticity doesn't mean being stubbornly the same in every context. It means being so grounded in your values that you can present yourself in different ways without compromising who you are at the core. True authenticity, in fact, is about effectiveness. If you care deeply about others, you owe it to them and to yourself to communicate in ways they can actually understand and respond to. What good is a moral principle if it leaves you powerless to create positive change? What good is an idea if it never gets heard or respected? The individuals who truly move the needle in society aren't those who cling to rigid sameness, but those who use adaptability to amplify their influence. They may look different on the surface depending on the context, but at the root, they are consistent in intention. And because they are effective, they end up helping far more people than those who cling to moral purity while lacking impact. That's the paradox. Adaptability often gets judged at the surface level, but beneath that surface is where effectiveness lives. The critics may frown, saying, "You're inconsistent." But the decision-makers, the innovators, the leaders, the people who actually shape the world, understand the sophistication required to navigate complexity. They know that lasting progress demands more than good intentions. It demands communication strategies that open doors, inspire collaboration, and create opportunities for constructive action. When you refine your ability to connect in different contexts, you don't become less authentic, you become complete. So, what does mastery of contextual communication really look like? It looks like choosing vulnerability that inspires respect, not pity. It looks like tailoring your knowledge so it empowers others rather than intimidating them. It looks like resolving misinformation in ways that strengthen rather than destroy relationships. It looks like presenting the parts of yourself that create trust, while also maintaining the integrity of your boundaries. When you embrace this approach, you stop thinking of adaptability as compromise and start seeing it as expansion. You expand your ability to contribute, to influence, to create positive outcomes. That's why mastering communication is not about abandoning truth, it's about carrying truth more effectively into the world. But even the most refined communication skills can't break through if you're still shackled by invisible beliefs that hold you back. Let's talk about those silent chains, self-imposed limitations that keep countless people stuck for years, even their inner programs, installed often without your permission, that whisper, "You can't," or "You shouldn't," every time you step toward growth. How many times have you talked yourself out of pursuing an opportunity because it felt too ambitious? How often have you told yourself that your goals were too much, that you didn't deserve the better job, the higher income, the healthier relationship, or the expanded life you envisioned? How many times have you apologized for wanting more, for standing up for your needs, for simply trying to grow? That inner voice doesn't come from wisdom. It comes from conditioning. Doubt is rarely innate. It's usually learned. And once you start asking who benefits from your hesitation, you'll quickly see the truth. When you doubt yourself, you make things easier for others who prefer you to remain small, manageable, and non-threatening. When you stop yourself from claiming opportunities, you protect the comfort of those who don't want to be challenged by your success. Self-doubt rarely serves you. It often serves systems or individuals who gain from your silence, your passivity, and your restraint. Let's examine some of the most common limiting beliefs. One says that wanting more for yourself is selfish. But pause for a moment. How can personal growth possibly be selfish if the result is that you become more capable of contributing to others? Another belief insists that success is a zero-sum game, that if you advance, others must fall behind. Yet, in reality, your progress often creates new opportunities for people around you. Another myth claims that focusing on your development means neglecting others. But isn't it true that neglecting yourself eventually drains your energy, leaving you less able to serve anyone? The irony is that many of the people who conditioned you to adopt these beliefs don't live by them themselves. They told you to be humble, but they pursued advancement. They encouraged you to wait, but they took decisive action. While you wrestle with hesitation, they're already moving forward. The turning point comes when you stop defending yourself against accusations of ambition and start reframing them. If someone tells you you're too focused on achievement, you can respond by saying you're simply taking responsibility for your potential. If they suggest you care too much about success, you can reply that you're maximizing your ability to contribute. If they accuse you of being self-centered for pursuing growth, you don't need to debate them. You just keep moving toward your goals. In time, your results will speak louder than their doubts. Here's a practical exercise. The next time hesitation creeps in, ask yourself 3 simple questions. First, who gains if I hold myself back right now? Second, does my hesitation protect anyone, or does it just limit my future? Third, how would I act if I truly believed I had every right to pursue this opportunity? Reflect on those answers honestly, and you'll begin to see that most of your doubts don't actually protect anyone. They simply keep you smaller than you're meant to be. Once you recognize that self-doubt is optional, you can start treating it as background noise rather than a command. And when you've loosened the grip of limiting beliefs, you're ready to embrace a higher framework: strategic ethics. This is where principles and intelligence meet. Many people think ethics is black and white, that actions are either good or bad, right or wrong, full stop. But life is rarely that simple. The wisest people understand that ethics isn't about rigid rules. It's about applying your values in ways that actually generate constructive outcomes. This is not abandoning morality. It's making morality functional in a world that's complex and ever-changing. Here's how strategic ethics plays out. You practice generosity when generosity builds trust, loyalty, and meaningful connection. You embrace transparency when openness strengthens collaboration and credibility. You extend forgiveness when forgiveness creates space for growth and mutual respect. But, and this is crucial, you don't confuse goodness with weakness. If kindness is exploited, you establish boundaries. If complete transparency causes unnecessary harm, you share information with discernment. If forgiveness encourages repeated offenses, you adjust your response. In other words, you don't follow ideals blindly. You choose the approach that actually creates the most constructive impact in that situation. Real-world examples make this clear. Suppose someone always asks for help but never reciprocates. The conventional, good person response is to keep giving endlessly. The strategically ethical response is to communicate clearly that mutual support is essential for a balanced relationship. Or take the case where someone spreads false rumors about you. The simplistic advice is to ignore it, but the strategically ethical move is to correct the record calmly, ensuring the truth is known while showing others that integrity matters to you. Strategic ethics is not about being harsh, it's about being complete. It's about having more than one tool in your toolbox so you can adapt your responses intelligently. Look at the figures in history who actually created transformation leaders, reformers, innovators. They didn't succeed by applying rigid formulas to every situation. They succeeded by being thoughtful, discerning, and adaptive, by weighing multiple values and choosing the path that best served their greater mission. They didn't apologize for this sophistication because they knew their results mattered more than simplistic consistency. Their ability to be strategically ethical allowed them to create more value, help more people, and leave a lasting legacy. This is the lesson for you. Ethical living doesn't mean naive living. It doesn't mean you must be rigid, predictable, or endlessly accommodating. It means you recognize the complexity of life and respond in ways that both honor your principles and achieve constructive results. By embracing strategic ethics, you don't weaken your values, you empower them. You stop being a bystander in your own story and become an active participant, shaping outcomes with both compassion and intelligence. When you master communication, free yourself from limiting beliefs, and adopt strategic ethics, you step into a new level of effectiveness. You're no longer just a good person, hoping the world notices you. Become a wise person, shaping the world actively. And that combination of heart and strategy is what allows you to achieve your goals, protect your dignity, and make a meaningful difference in the lives of others. When you confine yourself to rigid, overly simplistic views of life, you don't only limit your own growth, you reduce the number of people you can positively influence. The world desperately needs individuals who are both principled and practical, those who can embody integrity while also thinking strategically. True progress happens when values meet effectiveness, when good intentions are supported by competence, and when strong character is paired with intelligence that knows how to navigate complexity. The highest form of ethics isn't merely clinging to ideals in theory, it's cultivating enough influence, skill, and credibility so those ideals can actually shape real-world outcomes. That's where impact begins. Let this thought anchor in: I am a creator of meaningful impact. Now comes the crossroads. This is where the future branches in two directions. One road leads to limited thinking, where opportunities slowly slip by, unnoticed and unused. The other path leads to a deeper, more sophisticated understanding of how influence works and how genuine impact is made. The danger of simplistic thinking is subtle. It doesn't strip everything away at once. Instead, it erodes your potential bit by bit, one silent compromise at a time. Each time you fail to question something that should have been challenged, you quietly signal that your standards can be bent. Each time you choose silence instead of participating, you give others permission to move forward without your input or perspective. Every moment you prioritize temporary approval over lasting respect, you trade long-term influence for short-lived comfort. The ultimate cost: the version of yourself you never became, the changes you could have championed, and the legacy you could have left behind. Look around. Somewhere, someone with abilities remarkably similar to yours is living the life you want. They have the career you envision, the connections you admire, the opportunities you crave. What separates them from you isn't luck, nor is it innate superiority. The difference is that they embraced these truths earlier. They learned that society doesn't reward goodness alone, it rewards competence coupled with action. They grasped that ethics shine brightest when carried by influence, not as a substitute for it. They saw through the illusion that well-meaning advice about always playing it safe or always being agreeable would lead to success, because those teaching such advice rarely followed it themselves when their own goals were on the line. Niccolò Machiavelli famously argued that if one must choose between love and fear, it is safer to be feared. Translated into modern life, it means this: it is better to be respected for your competence than dismissed as naive. Better to be valued for your capability than overlooked despite good intentions. Respect opens doors that approval alone cannot. And yet, hearing this often stirs discomfort. It feels heavy, perhaps even unsettling, because many of us were conditioned to believe effectiveness and morality sit at odds with each other. That conditioning, not your conscience, is often what resists this message. Think carefully about those who told you that pursuing effectiveness was somehow wrong. Are they truly making the difference they claim to value? Are they living by the same simplified rules they impose on others? More often than not, they operate by more nuanced principles in private, while teaching oversimplified frameworks in public. They protected their own interests with strategy, while urging others to stay confined to idealism. That's why you must ask yourself, do you want to remain someone who tries hard but achieves little, or do you want to be the person who means well and accomplishes more? Here's the reality. Complex human dynamics exist whether you acknowledge them or not. power and influence shape outcomes every day. The real choice is whether you'll learn these dynamics consciously or continue operating blind to them. History remembers those who were effective, not merely those who were morally rigid. It celebrates leaders who reshaped societies, innovators who redefined industries, and reformers who broke systems open not because they were flawless, but because they were capable. They combined their values with strategy and left an imprint that idealism alone never could. This isn't about manipulation, it's about completeness. It's about becoming the kind of person who can be generous when generosity creates growth, honest when transparency strengthens trust, and strategic when strategy serves a greater ethical purpose. It's about holding enough influence to ensure your values don't just soothe your conscience, but actually transform situations. Effectiveness doesn't dilute your ethics, it empowers them. When you operate from this mindset, your good intentions are no longer abstract, they become a force for tangible good. So the decision is in front of you. Stay in the cycle of good intentions without influence, or step into the realm where intentions meet execution. The world belongs to those who understand its rules, whether or not those rules feel comfortable. Victory belongs to those who stop apologizing for ambition. Power belongs to those wise enough to claim it and disciplined enough to use it well. The question is not whether you're worthy of it. The question is whether you will step forward and embrace it.